Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. I don't know. This is probably just gonna be like my second or third video I post. So yeah, thanks for coming to my channel. So I think today I want to do this video. I don't know. I'm probably gonna film multiple videos every time I film, just because it's easier for me as a stay-at-home mom. It's kind of hard to find time. But anyways, this video is going to be what I read in 2021 so far. And I had a really slow start to the year. And one of the other reasons I'm like really motivated to do this booktube channel is to be more consistent on reading. But yeah, so this year I've so far read, it looks like 7 books, and that's really good for me right now, just because since I graduated from high school and when I went to college and when I had to work, and then just life getting to me, like I feel like I've read 7 books in a year. Other years, we're halfway through the year and I've read 7 books, so that is good. I at least want to double that number. Let's do it 14 at least. So yeah, let's just get started. So I guess we'll do my most recent finish and then work my way back. The most recent book I finished was Melissa Explains It All, Tales from My Abnormally Normal Life. And what I have to say about this book is it was just a nostalgia for me. And I'm honestly, for me, I listened it to an audiobook, and this book could have sucked. But listening to Melissa Joan Hart's book, like listening to her voice, it just brought so many feels. And I love her. And she probably had, like she mentioned, which was so funny, was how her co-star would say she sometimes, something along the lines like you have to have diarrhea of the mouth, or diarrhea, whatever. My aunt that passed away a few years ago, that's what my grandpa would always tell her, like, you have diarrhea of the mouth. And I think even more reason this book was more special to me, because every time she said it, I was like, oh, it just reminded me of my aunt. That and Melissa Joan Hart, I loved her growing up. I loved watching her shows, watching reruns. Even now, whenever she comes out with a new show or movie, I'm all about it, because it just reminds me of my childhood. And I feel like my childhood wasn't the worst, but I did go through some difficult times, and it just reminds me of a happy time, a really happy time. Anyways, I guess some things I didn't like about the book was she did go on tangents, I guess, that weren't really important. She experimented, especially when she was an adult, she experimented with, doing drugs and alcohol, partying. She was kind of irresponsible, but like she mentions in the book, there's a lot more celebrities out there that were a lot worse. And compared to them, her life was very tamed. Even though, like, to me, like, as a normal person, I'm like, it's not really tamed. But, yeah. Anyways, like, I get the negative reviews on there where it says she went on these tangents about, like, oh, look at my life, I went partying and this and this and that. But then again, I go back to, she's Melissa Joan Hart, she's Sabrina, she can do no wrong in my eyes. But her audiobook, if you're thinking about reading, you're not sure about reading her book or not, audiobook, her voice, her diction, everything. I love it so much. Okay, I'm sorry if the camera angle is a little off. I can't quite remember where it was before I'm recording on my phone, and my memory went out and I didn't realize I wasn't recording. So, yeah, so the camera angle might be a little weird, different. So let's jump back in. The second book, most recent book I read was The Shadow Cipher. It was the first book in the Shadow Cipher series, and it was a pretty good book. I'm pretty sure it was like a middle grade book. It was, I don't think it was more so fantasy, maybe sci-fi. Sci-fi. It's set in like a different like New York setting. It's like takes place in New York, but like a different New York than the one we know. And it's I enjoyed it. It was about a cipher that these two twins left behind for people to solve, and like their most like, it was very vague about what they would find in, like, once they solved the cipher. It was very vague, and it's like one clue leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next. So it's been about 100 years since these two twins passed away and left the cipher, and now there's these other twins. I believe they don't have any relation to the original twins, but they're twins. And the grandpa's part of this like secret society that works together to, well, I should say secret society, because they kind of like play off of those words, that have just dedicated their lives to trying to solve the Shadow Cipher. Sorry, I need to fix this. Yeah, I don't know. It looks weird. Okay, anyways, they dedicate their lives to solving the cipher, and there's another character in it too that is helping them. I guess what I'm trying to get to is I enjoyed it. It wasn't like my favorite. It had that like chosen one trope, which I guess because I've been watching a lot of other booktubers, I've been noticing a lot of like the convenience trope or whatever you want to call it. And it kind of explains it in an interesting way though, where like the cipher is alive. The grandpa of the twins explained it, where the cipher is alive, and people aren't just trying to figure out what the cipher is, but also the cipher is figuring out the person that is chosen to solve it, if that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. I don't know. I have a problem lately. I don't know if because I'm a parent and I'm trying to read these like middle grade and young adult books and trying to see like, okay, is this kind of like a book I want my child to read? And I guess the next 3 books, or the 2 after these, I could talk more about it, but I just don't like it when I see kids and it's like the adults don't want us to blah blah, or the adults don't get us, or like the adults only want to ruin our fun, or they don't understand. And I mean, I get it. Like when I was in middle school and high school, it's like adults don't get me. But do I want my child reading that kind of book? Which, I mean, another book that I'm going to talk about, I could probably explain it more clearly, what I mean, that I'm trying to be careful with. Considering I think this is like a Christian fiction, so I mean, I feel like, okay, there's books out there that have worse things that I wouldn't want my child to read. So, yeah. It was a decent book. It wasn't my favorite just because I was like, okay, let's get past this part already. Like, I get it. And the thing that upset me was that the book is a decent size. And I mean, I guess there's a lot of like, I'm pretty sure it's like double spaced, but I guess one of the things that upset me was we didn't solve the cipher. And there's still a lot to figure out. And I just realized my microphone's not connected, so the sound is going to sound a little different too. Anyways, let's move on. So the next book I want to talk about is Peaches & Co. Tilly and the Bookwanderers. And the first book I loved. I loved so much. And I thought it was an interesting take. I remember reading Hart, and I remember I enjoyed it. I don't remember all the details because it's been like 15 years since I read it, but this one was kind of like a neat take on it. I read it because I joined Darlene Desi's Patreon, and this is what we were reading, and I'm so glad that this was the book chosen. I enjoyed the mystery. I don't know. It's a middle grade book. I enjoyed the mystery. I enjoyed how you learn early on there's Bookwanderers, that you kind of get born into a family of Bookwanderers. So it's not just random necessarily, but most likely if you're a Bookwanderer, you have a mom or dad or grandparents that are also Bookwanderers. I enjoyed seeing well-known characters like Sherlock and Anne of Green Gables, Alice in Wonderland, these characters that were just interacting with real life people in the books, and I enjoyed the mystery. There was a mystery of the main character's mom disappears, so I enjoyed that mystery. It's very straightforward, but it was a cool world to discover, and I think it was just a really good middle grade book. I enjoyed the characters, and that what brings me to the next book. I finished the second book right after reading the first book. I put the second book on hold from my library, and that one's Pages & Co. Tilly and the Lost Fairytales, and I feel like I'm trying to figure out what kind of reader I am. Am I character-driven, plot-driven, world-driven? Those kind of phrases I've heard on BookTube. And so I'm trying to figure that out. And I didn't think I was a character-driven reader, but this book really upset me because the characters started acting a little off from what they wouldn't have acted that way in the first book. And I might need to say spoilers because I could rant about this book a bit. Non-spoiler things, I feel like Tilly's character, instead of growing, which I understand the book isn't that much in the future, like after the first book, but the second book, I just feel like she was really immature. She kind of acted bratty. She gave her grandparents attitude where I feel like, is that necessary? And I feel like there's no consequences for that attitude. And that's one of the books where I'm just like, do I want my child reading this and thinking it's okay to talk negatively to adults and think you're smarter than adults and not get any consequences for that? Where it was kind of like, yeah, I disobeyed the adults in my life and I saved the world kind of thing. And I guess spoiler things, I'll figure out how to do spoilers. Hopefully I learn how to edit. And I'll say spoilers, no spoilers, or I'll have a timestamp. But I guess spoiler is, in the first book, they rescue the mom from the book she was trapped in. So in the second book, the mom is somewhat present. And I really disliked it because the mom wasn't a prevalent part of the story, and I feel like she should have. And in the end of the first book, I thought the mom was going to grow and the relationship between Tilly and the mom was going to grow and evolve, and I feel like the mom was just miserable. She didn't really seem like she wanted to be a parent. She seemed like she didn't really want to get to know her daughter. And even though Tilly mentions some negative things like, oh, my mom kind of just is just around, like she doesn't really care about being with me, I feel like that storyline wasn't explained more. It was just at the end of the storyline, it was like, well, that's that. And also another little spoiler thing was one of the Chalk, the character in the bad guy in the first book, he's in the second book, and I feel like the way they destroyed this character, I feel like it was kind of messed up. Like it was kind of like wrapped in a little bow, like there I'm sacrificing this person to save another person, and I might be getting the details a little off because it's been a few months since I read this book, but I don't know. I feel like Tilly was doing really messed up things in my head. I was like, do I want my future preteen teen son to read this and be like, oh yeah, I can step all over adults and it's okay, no consequences. And you get to the saving part, and it doesn't matter whose toes I step over. End of rant. Next book, the all-girl filling station's last reunion. So this book I read on audiobook. I think I borrowed it from my library's audiobook, and this one I enjoyed half of the book. I don't know, because okay, so it has like a present characters that she finds out. Well, I feel like this isn't a spoiler, but if you want to skip a couple seconds, she finds out she's adopted, and the entire book she is obsessed with, do I tell my mom, do I not tell her, no, who am I, like, she's like obsessing over she's adopted, this is gonna ruin my social, reputation, and I feel like she's kind of worried about really dumb things. And then there's these other characters we follow in the future, mainly Fannie, or was it Fannie? Yeah, we're following Suki, we're following Fannie in the past, and I enjoyed the past. I feel like if it was just a story about the past, I would have loved this book. But I feel like Suki was kind of whiny, and I don't know, I didn't like the whininess of Suki. I think her name's Franny. Fritzy? Franny? Fritzy. I think it's Fritzy. I loved her. She was spunky. She explained the historical events because it was during, I believe, World War II, and she was one of the first female. She explained how she was one of the first females to fly in the military, and I like that, like, female power, and I don't know how she explained the history, and Suki and Fritzy's stories end up coming together, and I enjoyed that part, but I feel like I probably could have done with just Fritzy telling a story and then Suki coming in later. I don't know. It was decent. I really enjoyed the audiobook. But yeah. Okay, next thing was Part of Your World, and it's one of the Disney Twisted fairy tale books that I've been reading. And since I have a few of them, I actually want to do like a separate video talking about all the Twisted fairy tales and then the ones I've read so far, and then giving updates on that. So I don't want to get too much into it, but I did enjoy the take on. So if you don't know, the Disney Twisted fairy tales is if the happy ever after in the Disney movies didn't happen and the opposite happened. So in this case, Ursula doesn't get stopped from marrying the prince. She ends up marrying the prince, and just the horrible things that happens after that. And I enjoy the concept of the story. I feel like the author, even though Ariel was supposed to be more mature, and I think she's like, mid-20s, I feel or maybe early 20s. I don't know. I feel like the tone of the characters were very immature. And I think if the tone of their dialogues was more mature, I probably would enjoy it more. But I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed their take on the twisted fairy tale. I don't know. I'll explain more in the other book. Or in the other video I want to do, sorry. And then the last book that I have read so far in 2021 is Persuasion by Jane Austen. And this is another book that I decided to read because of Darling Desi's Discord. And I really enjoyed this. I haven't read any Jane Austen books before, and I feel like I haven't heard many people talk about it. I feel like I usually hear people talking about Pride and Prejudice or Emma, or I can't think of any other books right now, but those are two I mainly hear people talk about. So I was getting kind of confused when I was reading through Persuasion, just the old style dialogue, and I haven't read that many books in a while, and it was kind of confusing for a bit. And I watched the movie. I enjoyed the movie, so when I went back to read the book, I was able to follow along better, and I guess I enjoyed the silliness of a lot of people around this main character, which I totally forgot the name, and I was kind of lazy to grab the book before I sat down, but I enjoyed the main character. She was like the sensible one, and then everyone around her were kind of silly, I guess. They were mainly worried about fortune, or, being taken care of by their servants, or, marrying up, or they were just very silly. And I heard another YouTuber, which I can't think of who said it because I watch a lot of videos when I'm cleaning and doing dishes, but one of them said Jane Austen kind of like makes fun of her time period, and I totally see that. Because how I remember, because I vaguely remember watching Pride and Prejudice, the movie, so based off of Elizabeth's character and based off of this character in Persuasion, I can definitely tell, like, she likes having her main characters being very strong, and that was very rare in her time period, and then having everyone else be like the typical time period. And it kind of reminds me of like if I were to go back in time, how odd I would stick out, I guess. I feel like I didn't really explain the books too much. It was mainly my thoughts about it, but I think that's kind of why I wanted to start a booktube, was to kind of share my thoughts with other people that have read it or want to read it or end up reading it. Thanks for hanging out with me, and let's chit chat. It's okay. Bye. See you next time.